All right, good morning, campers. So, I'm doing this video as a precursor to when we actually turn a pin on the lathe next class. And the reason for that is because this part takes quite a long time because we have to wait for glue to dry. And the glue that we use takes about 24 hours to fully cure. It's polyurethane liquid glue, which means it's kind of part plastic. This is an epoxy-like glue, and if you know what epoxy is, it's you take two parts and you mix it together, and it makes one very, very strong connection. But this particular one doesn't need two parts, and it's kind of a foaming glue. If you've ever used Gorilla Glue, it's a lot like that. So the first thing that we have to do in order to make our pin is to take our blank and cut it to the size that we're going to need. And to do that, we have to take part out of our pin kit. These are the brass tubes that go on the inside. And let's zoom in here and show you what I'm doing. Okay, so we take our brass tube and we just lay it down on the top of the wood. And then you just mark where the end of the tube is. Some materials, this is a little harder than others, but you just have to be able to see your mark. Then you take your other brass tube, and I usually do it from the same mark because for some woods, you get a very good, what am I trying to say? A matching of the grain. So some people could go and measure off the other end. That way they have a more accurate cut. But one of the steps that we're going to do later on is we're going to trim this down so that it's the exact size of our barrels. So as long as it ends up being longer than the barrels, we're good to go. Also, while I'm set up and positioned over here, the other thing I'm going to do is prepare the tubes. So the tubes have to be scuffed up. Right now they're very smooth. And if we were to try to glue them in place, the glue would just break and they'd come apart. So what we have to do is take some sandpaper. I have just one of the 150 grit sanding discs from our orbital sanders. And you just kind of fold it over and you don't pull on it, you twist. And the reason that you twist is because you want circular scratch marks in the brass. You don't want ones that are in a line. If they're in a line, the glue will hold a little bit better, but the glue will also just kind of, release in a line. In this way, at least it'll grab and have something to hold on to. I don't know how well you can see the difference here, but the top one is definitely very scuffed up, and that's what we want. We'll do this to the other one, and then we're gonna go and prepare the rest of the blank. I'm applying quite a bit of pressure with my left hand here so that those really dig in deep. Okay, so let's go over to the saw and cut the blank. Now there are a number of tools that are really good at cutting for this kind of operation, but I prefer the bandsaw because it gives us the smallest kerf to work with, and it also gives us the safest way of taking care of this. So I'm going to start off by cutting off the little end, and then I'm going to immediately cut the next spot. I have two pieces that are pretty much the same length. See that real pretty purple color? This is a stabilized purple maple. So let's go to the lathe and do the next step. All right, so now we're over at the lathe, and if the last person who used it did what they were supposed to do, it should be completely empty of any tools. This one in particular has the tool rest off at the moment, which is okay. As long as it's locked up out of the way, we're good. So the first thing I want to do is put the drill bit that we're going to use in the chuck. So right now this has a barrel trimmer in it, and we'll talk about what that is later. But I'm just going to use the chuck key, remove the barrel trimmer. I'm going to have to open the jaws a little bit more. And then feed this drill bit in. This is a special drill bit. We have a couple of them around here, but we do need to be careful with it. It is a long bore 7mm drill bit, and that's the type that we have to use in order to drill the correct size for our pen blanks. And we just push it in so that it's nice and snug inside of our tailstock. That's what this piece here is called. Next, we're going to take this apparatus. Kind of looks a little bit like the top of Sauron's tower if you're a Lord of the Rings fan. Anyway, it spins on to the live part of the headstock, and then we take our lock key, put it in there, and then twist over until it's snug. After doing that, we're going to take our purple maple, or whatever stock you happen to be using. Widen the chuck. There's some knurl part right here, the bumpy part. You twist that until it opens and you rotate it towards you. Put the material in place so that the corners line up with the little corner grips in there, and then we tighten it down. And just kind of finger tight it in there. That's not bad right there. And then it's as simple as turning the machine on. Remember, you always make sure that the machine is on its lowest setting when you go to turn it on. You can see even at its lowest setting, it's still spinning pretty quick. And what I'm going to do is kind of slide this over and let the brad on the bit find the center of the wood. You'll know you're in the right place when it just kind of rests against it without vibrating too much, and that's exactly what's happening right here. Once I've done that, I'm going to lock the tailstock in place, release the tailstock extension, and then use the handle to twist this into the material. Now this is kind of the slower way to do it, but it does produce a much better result than trying to move the tailstock throughout your whole cut. It also does have a bad problem of creating quite a bit of heat. But once I go in a ways, what we're trying to do is break through the back side of this, because on the back side, well, the pen needs to go all the way through. So once I've got that hole started, I'm going to move the tailstock forward until it's in the hole, and then I'm going to do it by hand the rest of the way. Now you can see here it's taking a lot of power, so I'm going to speed this up just a little bit. And I'm going to frequently back out of the cut so we can get some of that sawdust out of there. Oh. So what happened there was I reached the back end, and we have now gone all the way through this piece. I'm going to loosen this and take the part out. You can see here it goes all the way through. And then we're just going to simply do this with the other piece now. Put that into place, tighten it down. Whoop. Make sure you're going the right way to tighten it down. There we go. And then repeat the process. Down. go. All right, so now we take that and let's get our stock out of here. And then take our piece, pop it through the hole in the back, and let's get the, let's get the tailstock out. Sometimes this takes a little bit of finessing. There we go. And then lock this in place over here and remove this. Alright, and then that's it for the lathe. Let's go and glue our tubes in. Alright, so we're back over at our work area here, and I've unclogged the glue, which is a problem with this. And we're ready to go. So we have our burl, or our blank, I mean. It's actually called purple maple burl, which is where that name came from. But you can see here, the tube fits in. It's just a little bit on the wide side, but that's fine. It leaves us room for the glue. So you're going to take your glue, and we're going to run basically a small bead of glue. Go. I'm going to run a small bead of glue along the top of the barrel. Not much at all, just a thin stripe. And then we're going to push it in and twist. And back out just a little bit so that we can make sure we get that end. And then twist all the way into the barrel. If you get some of the glue on yourself, don't worry about it too much. You'll just need to make sure you don't wipe it off on your clothes. But we want it until the barrel sits flush with one side or the other. Actually, that part doesn't matter too whole lot, because as long as the barrel is fully inside the wood, the barrel trimmer that we'll talk about here in just a minute takes care of the rest of that problem. So we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Just a thin bead of glue along the top, and then twist it into the hole. Now, like I said earlier, this glue is basically a foaming type of glue, which means it's going to bubble out of it, and that means that our next thing that we have to do is set this somewhere that it's not going to get glue, it's not going to glue itself to something. But now that the tubes are in there, we're going to let this dry, and we'll see you when that happens.